morning. Welcome to Michell Consulting's webinar series. Today we're going to be going through Infor FACTS and talk about the basic navigation of the software. We're going to be recording this webinar, and this will be available on our website. I'll give you more information at the end. So let's start in the system, and I'm going to show you basically some of the functionality of Infor FACTS. As you can see here, I have two sessions opened up. So we're going to go into each one, and we're going to give you some information about the actual software itself. Let's go over here. So again, this is our menu. You can see our main menu. Once we log in, we get our main menu. A little bit about the FACTS software. FACTS is a batch processing system. This means that information is entered through either a document entry or a transaction entry, and that information is stored in a temporary file. General ledger is not updated, information is not updated. So the information is in a temporary file. From that temporary file, we print and edit reports. This allows us to look at the data we've entered, to make changes to the data we've entered. Once we're satisfied with that, we're going to go ahead and post it or update the information. So we work on the principle of enter, print, and post. To see that, I'm going to go into accounts payable, and I'm going to go into document entry here. You can see that we have an entry screen that allows us to enter information into the screen. Again, it's a temporary information. We can call it up and make changes to it. So we're going to go here, and we're going to go into document entry. For example, we can go see what we've already have in the system. So we're going to call one up that I've already entered. And you can see now I have the ability of making changes to this. I can go into the header. I can make any changes I want in the software itself by going to the header. I can go to the line. So again, it's in a temporary file. Just click out. Then what happens is here, after we have the information, again, we can call it up as much as we want. We have our document entry and adjustment register. So this allows us to then go in. Again, we can run a report. We can view the information we want. We can go ahead, and then if we decide everything's okay, we can go ahead and update or post. When we do that, then the information becomes temporary. So we work on that batch processing system. Those who use FACTS, if you notice at the end of the day, we want a daily sales register or any type of report. So information is entered in the system. It's in a temporary file. From that temporary file, we can then view the reports or view the information. We can make changes to it, and then we update. Once we update, that information is taken out of the temporary file, and then all the historical files are updated. So if we were to enter an AP invoice and we were to update and post it, then we have to go back and make an adjustment or a credit. So let's look a little bit about the menu and talk about our menu here. This is our master menu, so you can see the different module breakdown. It tells us, again, we're in for ERP FACTS. We're logged. This is the version we're using. It tells us, again, the name of the company that we're logged into. You have the ability of signing out here if you want to exit. You have the ability of using access codes to move throughout the menus. So there's two ways to navigate. For example, I can go to accounts payable by clicking on the icon. I'm in accounts payable. I can click on reports and prints. So now I'm in the accounts payable reports and prints. I can use this arrow to go back. So I'm back to the main menu. If I know the codes, I can enter them in here. So for example, if I put in AP and I press enter, you can see I'm directly in the accounts payable mode. If I put in APR, you can see I went directly to the reports. So again, we can use that information to go through. If we don't know the access codes until we learn them, we can go here and we can search. So for example, AP will take you to the accounts payable. AP1 would be document entry. AP2 would be payments, and so on. So our AP reports would be the APR here. So again, we can do it that way, or we can just click if we want to go to the payment hold and selection. We can just double click, and we're in our payment hold selection. So it's one of the ways we can navigate throughout the system. Or again, we can go into our individual modules. We can see here. We also have some information here. We can change some of the settings. We can create what they call a profile file maintenance. This is nice when you're dealing with multi-locations or multi-salespeople. You can actually define a profile, and you can set a profile to a user. In this case, we're just going to go look at the profile file maintenance. We're going to call up one, and we can see we have here the Atlanta office. If you notice the Atlanta office, we have the screen size of 110%. We have our default printers, our default sales territory, our default warehouse, and so on. We go back here to this one. We don't have the default, we have a blank. So this is nice when we're dealing with, again, multiple warehouses or multiple locations. We can define this, or even salespeople, we can define the branches and departments. We can then go ahead and set that here. We can then go change the active profile. So we can set our profile. So let's go in and let's talk about the structure of how the screens are set up and how the modules are set up. I'm going to open up sales order. And again, as we discussed with the batch processing, the enter, print, and post, I typically have some entry screens. In the case of sales order, I can do quote entry, orders entry, invoices, and so on. All the modules will have an inquiry screen. This is a search or lookup screen. All the modules will have a reports and prints. They will have an end of period and a file maintenance. So again, if I go to AP, you can see the same thing. I have an entry screen. I have an inquiry screen. I have my reports, my end of period, and my file maintenance. Again, same thing. If we look at inventory, we have some entry screens. We always have our inquiries, our reports and prints, our end of period, and our file maintenance. Okay, so let's go into an inquiry screen, and let's see some of the things we can do in inquiries. I'm going to open up the sales customer inquiry. All right. And we can do some things here. And again, the inquiries all tend to look the same, so I'm going to use this one as a sample, but the features I'm going to show you are available in all the inquiries. So we're going to start off with the options. So we click on options. We have the option of synchronizing the inquiry. This is nice because, in fact, you can log in with the same user up to 7 times on the same terminal. So what I can do is I can open up the inquiry in another screen, and I can synchronize. That means while I'm entering an order, I can see the information. So I'm going to click Synchronize. You can see the synchronization is on. Okay, and you can see that it's defaulted to this deluxe equipment warehouse. Let me go down to this one here. Let's go to orders. On the screen so we can see both of them. Go to order entry. Okay. So if you notice right now, I have this open. It's just defaulted to the last customer, the C101, the deluxe equipment. But if I come here and I create an order and I start with, let's say this one here, Central Valley Water, and I double click, you can see that because it's synchronized, the inquiry opened up to the customer I was in. Okay, so you can see that. That's a nice feature actually in the software. I'm just going to turn this off right now. That's a nice feature because what a lot of people do is when they log in, they may log in 4 or 5 times. They have the main screen, so they're going to be entering orders. They may open up the sales inquiry. They may open up an item inquiry, different inquiry screens, because then what I can do is as I'm working, I can see everything. So if I go to enter a product, when I enter the product, the item inquiry would then synchronize to that product as well, and I can look at information like how much I have in my warehouses, do I need to do transfers, and so on. So that's under the Option tab. That's our synchronization. You can also do some stuff. You can set what they call the view preferences. Okay, you can see here what we're viewing. We have blanket orders, materials, safety data sheets, orders, and so on. So what I can do is I can determine what I want. Let's say I don't use the materials safety data sheets, so there's no reason for me to keep that on my screen. I'm going to go and I'm going to make that hidden. I'm going to do that. I'm going to click OK. I'm going to refresh the screen, and now you'll see I do not have it on the screen here. Okay, so let's just go back. And let's go into that one. Let's just, if I want to turn it off, hidden yes, we're just going to hit hidden again. I'm going to go back to no. I can also open it. I can add to favorites. I can kind of build favorites to depend on which ones I want and what order. I can also build favorites in the system. Okay, now you'll see it's back on here. You also know there's a thing called Use Smart Views. What Smart Views will do is they'll kind of keep track, and we just click it to turn it on. So if we go back in, we can see it's checked. What Smart Views will do is it will keep a tally, a little trail of what you're using, and eventually it will actually move these for you. So if you go in here a lot and you use, every time you go in, you start clicking on past invoices, that's what you use a lot, missing client, eventually it'll move that automatically into the view. So you can create your Smart Views. You can also reset if you want to turn them off. You can reset the views here. You can also open the view as a window. So the view will be a separate window outside of this one if you want. And you also have some customer notes. So you can see here the information here. And again, that's coming under the options. You have the view. Again, you can also go here. Everything you see, you can go directly to. So if I want to go to past invoices, I can go directly to past invoices. So I have the ability of doing it through here, as well as the ability of doing it through here. Okay, and we do have our help. We can also use our navigation button. So we're sitting on this customer. We can just here scroll through. So now with the next customer, and so on. We can also change our filter preferences. Right now, we're filtering, again, we're filtering by warehouse 01, all item types, and all ship tos. Again, depending on the preference you may want to do, you may want to set this up. Maybe you want to look at all warehouses or another warehouse, maybe the item types here. Okay, you may want to change the item types you're looking at, and you may want to default to a ship to. So again, you can set your preferences for this window in here or do all. There's an RM snapshot for what this does allows me with the relationship management tool, allows me to actually export this information into an Excel. And again, down below we have some other buttons. We can look at line details here. Okay, so basically what we're doing is we're doing our drill down. In fact, this lets me drill down into the actual document. So I'm starting up here. You can see I have the document here kind of as a line in summary, and I can go into the item detail. We can do it that way. We also have an archiving function. This is something nice that FACTS has. It's an actual archiving module. The archive allows us to store reports and documents in a file for earlier retrieval. One of the nice things about that is that, as a rule in FACTS, is that before you update or post, you must print. So before, what used to happen is people would have to run the daily sales register. You can view it and look at it, check everything, make sure everything's okay. But if you had it in view mode, you don't get the ability to update or post to update the historical data. So people had to actually print a hard copy of it. And then, they would have to store the hard copy, waste paper, and so on. What the archive allows you to do is allows you to view it at the same time you're actually archiving or saving a copy of it. Because you're saving the copy in archive, you can view it on the screen and then do the update. So the advantage of that is you're updating the data, and then you have your edit report, in this case the daily sales register, you have it in a file as archived. And then we'll have other demos and webinars on the more details of archiving. But then you can actually search and reprint and information you want. So it gives you that flexibility of not wasting paper, but of storing the information. Exit here. let's look at some of the searches. Let's go into some of the structures of facts. So we're going to go to our main menu. Let's go into accounts receivable, file maintenance, and let's look at the customer file maintenance. So again, we have our search capability that we can change. And again, I'm showing you this in the customer file maintenance, but this holds true in all searches. So here we can open our search. So right now we're searching by customers. As you know, we can change our sorts here. But as default, alpha came up, and as default, it came up in this columns, alpha, customer, name, and so on. Again, you have the options to make changes. You can go into the filter values like you saw in the inquiry, save them. You can reset the system defaults. So here we're going to go in and take a look at it. And we're going to say that this is the sort order. So by default, we're always searching by the alpha. Let's change this to customer. And you can see we're saving this as the user defaults, which means it's going to be for me the way I log in, not a whole system template. What's nice about that is in wherever I go log in, whatever computer I log into, my preferences are going to follow me. You can also go to the columns. So you can see here how we have the alpha, customer, and so on. If we want to move things around, for example, we want to put the phone after the customer, we would click where we want the phone. We would highlight it and then move it over. And we would click OK. We click OK. Let's exit. And let's go back in. So we're going to go here to new. So you can see right away what happened. You can see that by default, we came up here with the customer search here on the customer search. We no longer have the alpha. And we can see how we added our phone information in here. Again, if we want to go back to options, preferences, let's go back to alpha. Let's go to columns. Again, let's make our changes. If we want to move something here, we want to move, say, the contact to down, or we want to move, let's say, the zip code after the city state. We would take it out of the selected columns, go where we want it, grab it, and put it back. So again, if we go back in, and we go to our search, again, now we're back to alpha, and you can see how we have the phone where we wanted it, and so on, the information here. You can also, in the search, you also have the ability of looking at customer notes. You can also export to Excel or flat file. A lot of people do this because what I'm going to do is I'm going to export my customer list. So if I want to do this maybe for a mailing or labels, I would set the columns I want. In that case, maybe I would take off alpha. I just want the name, address, and phone number, and I can bring it into an Excel or any type of flat file like a text file or a comma delimited file. And then from there, I can go ahead and do whatever I want, use a mail merge or so on. Okay, so other things we have here, we have what's known as our VCR buttons. Okay, what this is the first data record that we are. So it's going to give us our first customer. It's going to be our last data record. And then we can scroll through. And this customer had some notes pop up. Done with that. And so on. We also have information, again, about the setup. Everything we do have tabs for different information. So in this example, and this holds true in other maintenance, other file maintenance is in FACTS, like the item file maintenance. Here we have tabs. We have our main tab here. Again, this has the customer address and contact information. We have our accounting tab, which has information here related to tax codes, GL, and credit limits. We have our invoicing tab, price levels, and so on. We can look at our historical sales data. We have some miscellaneous information. And we have user-defined fields. FACTS is nice because it gives you these user-defined fields, which then you can actually use for other stuff. In this case, we took these 3 user-defined fields, and we gave them other information. And again, that will be covered in another detailed webinar when we talk about user-defined fields. We also have our information down here. Again, if we want to save the record, this will allow us to save a record. We can delete the record. We can add a new record you saw me doing before. Okay, and we can then exit. So here, if I make any changes to this, if I want to add a contact, okay, and I click Save. So if I go out, go back in, you can see it's there. If I do that and I try to get out, it's going to warn me that I've modified the record, but I haven't seen the changes. Okay, do you want to save the changes? I can say no. So what that'll do is take me out. I'll see without the changes. If I want to remove it, and I get that warning, I would say yes to save changes. So when I go back in, now it's there. Again, you can see the archive button here. So we have our archive. You can look at archive documents and reports for the customer. FACTS has a document routing system, which is, again, nice, which we'll show you in other detailed webinars. But you can set up document routing. So we can say that for this customer, every time we do an invoice, we want to do an email, we want to use the default email address, and so on. So you can define for every customer how you want to deliver documents, via email, via fax, or so on. Let's just exit that. So what we talked about here is, again, the structure of our menus. So we can see here, or we can see when we went into the menus, how we have our inquiries, our reports, and our information. So let's look at now reports and see some of the features that are in the reports. So let's go to an order status report. Okay, and some of the things that we can do in a report. Again, you can see here that there is no template. This is the default printer, and this is the default layout. This comes from, we saw the profiles. We can set the profiles if we want. We can also set templates and stuff if we want to create customization for our reports. So what we can do is we can do a template. Let's say we run this report and we run it, on a daily or twice a day, and we have some changes we want to do. So what we want to do is we want to go here, and we can then actually create a template. So what we're going to do here is we're going to go and we're going to say, okay, we're going to run this report, and we're going to, let's say, do it by item, and we're going to do it for the Dallas warehouse, and web, and so on. So we can make some changes here. Again, salesperson, let's just do it for Ronald. So we're going to go here and we're going to go template. We're going to create the template. We call this test. We can decide if it's a system template. That means everybody has it. Or we can set it as our default template. We can also decide in the template, are we going to, every time we do it, are we going to print it? Are we going to go to the viewer? Are we going to archive it, and so on? We can determine what printer it's going to go to. Let's just go to the file here. We can determine the number of copies. So every time we run this, we want 2 copies. And again, our layouts and settings. We can also go in to do multiples. So what we can do is we can say, you know what, we want to print this to a file and we want to add. And in the adding, we can say we want to archive it. So we can also do that, so we can have the 2 copies. Okay, so we have that. So let's cancel. Go back to the order status report. Now, I did not save that as my default. So again, when I come up, I'm coming up like we always saw. That we're coming up in order, but I can go to template, and I can select the test template, and you can see how everything changes. I can also go into the templates, and we can go here, and we can say this is going to be our default template. Okay, so let's save. Let's cancel. Let's go back in. Now we can see that you can see the template came up as our test template. And there it is there, and we set it to go print to a file. And you can see how it came up in the information I wanted. So templates are really nice if you do reports, and you tend to do a lot of, like I say, historical reports, and you tend to change the defaults on the report. You can actually set it up so you don't have to go in each time and remember what you did or make settings. And that's under the templates here. The print options, you can do anything. You can set your default printer, and you can go to your property. So as you saw me doing before on the template, this is going to be now, this template, my default printer was print the file. But again, if I happen to be running the report and for whatever reason I just want to change the folder or the printer, or I want to go to archive or fax, I can just click here and change it to Excel. And again, I can do my copies and my multiple. If I do it this way, you'll see it come down here. That's only for this report. I'm not really saving it. I just set the printer to Excel, and I run the report. So again, when I come back in, because I didn't save that as my default, it just goes back to what it was. And if I want to clear the template, okay, I can go back here. So again, I can set my default printer. So again, I can do it here. I can say what my default printer is going to be for this report. I can make it system-wide or company defaults for this particular thing. We also have our custom report layout. Again, this will go into in more detail in another webinar, but we can create basically customized report layouts. We can change what the report looks like. In this case, let's just go to print options. Let's see what we have here. So you see our report layout. In this case, we're running it this way, item, available, and so on. We can actually create a layout. We can determine with this layout, maybe we want it without the inventory, just the order quantity. Maybe we want to take out the pricing or so on. So we can customize our template so we can use this when we want. And then what we would do is then we would again customize the template, and then we would set the template. So again, we can make it a system template, or we can set it up for anybody to use. We can also set the security on the system. Fax, as you know, the security levels are done a couple ways. You can actually create passwords and do passwords with securities, or what you can do is you can find security levels. So if you have a user that you do not want to go into, say, inventory items or something like that, you can actually set the security level so they don't even have access to the screen. Won't even come up. Or what you can do is you can set a password, so they have the option of going in with passwords and so on. So again, to recap, what we're talking about is the navigation of the Infor ERP FACTS software. And again, as we discussed, it is a batch processing system. This means that information is entered into a temporary file through an entry screen, as you can see here. have an entry screen. We then enter the information. We can then print a report or view a report to check the information we've entered. We can then edit that information, make adjustments to that information, and then when everything's okay, we would actually do our register and we would do our update. The updating will take the information from the temporary file. It'll actually update all my historical files. So it'll update my general ledger, my purchase history, my sales history, whatever I'm doing. The customer or vendor agings will be updated. Once everything is updated, and then that temporary file becomes erased. So in the case I run this and I do that, and I realize I made a mistake. I made a mistake on the invoice. Instead of $1,000, it should have been $100. I then have to do credits and adjustments that way. You also know that within each module, we have the same type of setup. We typically have entry screens. In accounts payable, we have document and check entries. But all our modules will have an inquiry. The inquiry allows us to view or look up information. We have our reports and prints in the modules. This allows us to print information, view it, and so on, archive it. We have our end of period. This is what we need to do to close, for example, the accounts payable of the month. And then we have our file maintenance. Our file maintenance allows us to make changes, and the file maintenance are set in two ways. We have the file maintenance that we would use, more or less, more often than not, like, for example, vendor file maintenance. We have to create a vendor every couple of days. And then we have our infrequent file maintenance. The infrequent file maintenance tends to be things that are set up in the initial implementation of FACTS. And you're typically not going to go in there unless you want to do or add new things. So if you want to create a new term code or so on, you can go in. And again, you can see that holds true for sales order. Again, in this case, we have some entry screens. We can quote entry, order entry, invoice entry, customer returns entry, and so on. But we always have our inquiry screen, our reports, our end of period, and our file maintenance. And again, we can scroll through all our different modules here. Scroll down if we want. Okay, scroll up. We can go directly in, or we can use our access codes. So I know that AP1 is document entry, so if I put in AP1 and press enter, it'll take me to document entry. If I don't know, I can use this button here, and I can do a search. If I want to go to, say, static control, I'm going to be right here in my static control for AP. Again, you saw the settings. We talked about the user profiles. This is nice because we can actually change the active profile. We can set our profile file maintenance. This is good when we're dealing with multi-locations. For example, here we have the Atlanta office. So what we're doing is we're setting our defaults. You'll see that these defaults will follow through in the FACTS software, so we'll see them in different areas. We can, again, create a new one. We can delete. We can save. You saw how that works down here. And, again, our VCR buttons up here. And we can go that way through the things. We saw our searches, our inquiries. How we can set inquiries. We have the option of synchronizing our inquiries. Okay, what that allows me to do when I'm synchronizing it, in FACTS, I can open up to 7 sessions on the same terminal with the same user code. It only counts as one license. Again, so I can open these up. So when I'm entering an AP invoice and I enter a certain vendor, it'll synchronize and bring up the vendor information for me. Okay, you can look at your view preferences. You can see, again, what we're seeing on the screen. You can change. In this case, we can see the information here. Okay, what's hidden, what's not hidden. You want to automatically open it. You want to set it as a favorite. I'll just go to the top of the list. You can also use smart views. What smart views do, they're like the favorites, but they tend to monitor how many times you go in, and they keep a little log. So the more you use a certain window, you'll actually move it up top on the screen. It'll actually come up for you. You can also open the window view as a separate window itself. And again, you can also go here. So, for example, I can go to ledger cards like that, and it takes me right here. Or I can click on these. And again, we have our record buttons here. So right now we can go to the next vendors, and we can scroll through. These are our inquiries. We saw searches when we went into, let's say here, let's look at our customer file maintenance. We can do the same thing like we did inquiries on our searches. We can actually open up our searches, and we can set our options. As you can see here, we're sorting by the alpha search first, and this is what we see down in the screens. So if we go to options, preferences, again, we can change our default salt. We can go to columns. We can determine what columns we want to see. And this default sorting in columns, we can set this as my user default. So again, it'll follow me, my login, as I log in from station to station. And that was in here. You can also export. So whatever you see in the screen, you can export to Excel or a file. So you can actually search. You can also use keywords. So if you're not really sure of the name, you can type in, let's say, print. You can do an and or an or. So it found the word print here and the word print here. So you can do, say, if I do print and supply, it's only going to give me this because it's looking for the word print and supply. If I switch that to an or, you'll see it'll give me everything that finds the word print, okay, and or supply. So you can see supply is here, print is here, supply is here, so on and so on. You can also search that way. We also talked about our tabs and our VCR buttons. As we know here, we can do the first data record. We can scroll through our data records if we wish. You can see here the tabs. This is the standard layout. So we have the main tab. We have an accounting tab, and so on. User-defined field tab allows us to actually create. We have up to 4 or 5 depending on the screen. Allows us to modify, rename them, and use them for different things. So maybe we have some unique information in our business that we need for the customer, so we can actually set it up that way. And again, down here we saw we can save it, we can delete it, we can go new, and we can just exit upon saving. Okay, so that concludes our webinar today. Again, what we discussed was, this was an introduction to Infor ERP facts on navigation. I hope this has been helpful. What we're going to do, this will be posted on our website. You can visit us at www.michellgroup.com, and we'll have this along with some white papers and some helpful hints to help you with the software. Once again, we thank you very much for your time, and have a nice day.